What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the new Google Pixel 5a 5G. Now, this was sort of an unexpected surprise when it was announced last week. This phone was first rumored to come out earlier in the year, then it was rumored to be canceled altogether, but it's real, it's here now, and I'm very happy to see Google following through with it. You guys know that last year's Pixel 4a was a crazy good value, and this 5a is definitely a continuation of that theme. It takes elements from last year's flagship Pixel 5 and simultaneously keeps things affordable. This is once again that all-encompassing bang for your buck kind of phone. At $449, it's priced well below a lot of flagships, but what you get at that price I think still just screams amazing value. Before we get into all that though, let's just first quickly unbox this thing so I can show you what all comes inside the package when you buy one, and then we'll see what the new Pixel 5a 5G is all about. And as always, we have to give a big shout out to the folks over at Team Pixel for sending this phone out a little early. So peeling back the stickers and pulling off the lid, the first thing we get is the phone itself. Right away, I think you'll notice that this is a very familiar design and form factor to the last few Pixel phones, and we'll take a closer look at it in just a second. The next thing we get is a little cardboard packet. This has the SIM ejector tool and a little diagram to show you how to pop in your SIM card. There's also a quarter-sized stack of paperwork and instructions included as well to help guide you through the setup if you need it. And at the bottom of the box, we actually do get some accessories that, as you guys know, don't always come included with some other smartphones. There's a USB-C cable for charging. It's that nicer, thicker cable that Google has always included. There's an 18-watt USB-C power brick as well, and there's also a USB-A to USB-C adapter. Google calls this their quick switch adapter, and you can use this to connect your old device to your new Pixel 5a to transfer all your apps and other information. Super helpful. And all in all, I'm just glad to see that Google included all these accessories and things in the box. So with all that stuff out of the way, here is the new Pixel 5a 5G once again. And like I mentioned, this phone does sport a very familiar fit and finish to the flagship Pixel 5 and the Pixel 4a, but there are a few differences that set this new phone apart. First off, size-wise, the 5a 5G comes in at 6.34 inches, which is a very specific size, but that makes it now bigger than both the 4a and 4a 5G and quite a bit larger than even the flagship Pixel 5. It's essentially the largest Pixel device to come out in the last couple of years actually, but compared to the 6.5 inch and larger devices that we usually see, I consider this phone to still be relatively comfortable in the hand. It's still usable, at least with my single thumb stretching across corner to corner. It's pretty slim too, and the screen to body ratio is high enough to where you don't get much in the way of unnecessary borders and bezels. Across the top, you'll see no notch, just a small corner hole punch cutout for the selfie camera. At the bottom, not much of a chin either. The black borders all around really are fairly even, and that means you're getting an 85% screen to body ratio. From the front, this phone offers a design we've seen before on Pixel phones, but it's something I have no issues with at all. Around back, Google continued with its all-metal rear housing that's coated in a relatively smooth matte finish with just a subtle texture. Again, something we've seen before, but the materials and finish on this phone I considered to be fairly nice and somewhat premium. The color here is mostly black, that's what Google calls it. It's sort of a very dark green, and that is the only color option for this phone this year. In regards to some additional physical features, Google did add an IP67 certification this time around. This phone is now dust and water resistant, something we didn't get on last year's 4a, so that's a nice addition. On the other hand, we don't have wireless charging here like we saw on the flagship Pixel 5, so that is one thing that's missing. Still, I think the Pixel 5a is a good-looking, premium-feeling device, and Google has basically just continued with what's worked over the last couple of years. Taking a look around, on the left side you've got your SIM card tray. On the right, the power button is there with a lighter shade of green and a funky little wavy texture to help differentiate it from the volume buttons below. At the top, you'll find a headphone jack, which is nice to still see on this phone. And down at the bottom, the USB-C port is flanked by the microphone and speaker setup. We do get one speaker at the bottom there and one additional speaker in the earpiece for a stereo out loud listening experience. And this is an actual sort of speaker cutout with a grill, not that under display secondary speaker from the Pixel 5, which to me is the right move here. The out loud listening experience is great. It's loud, it's crisp, and here's a sound sample so you can get an idea. Around back, you of course have Google's highly regarded camera setup, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's also the same fingerprint sensor around back as well in the middle that we've had for a while. And just like before, the setup and feel with this is really great. It's fast enough, it's easy to find, it works well, and I'm glad to still have it on this phone. Now let's get into some of the important stuff. And to start, we definitely need to talk about the display. The screen on the Pixel 5a 5G is a 2400 by 1080 resolution OLED panel with HDR. It packs in some 415 pixels per inch, and essentially this is the same sort of display we did see on the Pixel 4a last year. For your viewing experience, everything looks really good. The OLED panel is bold and bright, it's very colorful, it's sharp, kind of that perfect balance of resolution for its size in my opinion. As a screen overall, it isn't pushing the limits, but I have no real complaints with how things look, and I think this is a great setup for movies, YouTube videos, or anything else you want to watch. But with the display, there is one compromise. No high refresh rate here. The panel is 60 Hz, and for any phone released in 2021, I think, especially this late in the year, I think that's a bit of a miss. There are some devices nowadays in the $300 range even that offer 90 or 120 Hz. Some are LCD, sure, but the fast, fluid, and ultra-responsive feel of that high refresh rate I think is well worth it. It's probably the one single thing I wish this phone had, but beyond that, I think the display as a whole still looks great and has plenty to offer. For the internal specs, Google made the interesting decision to power this phone again with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G 5G chipset, the same chipset from the 4a 5G and the flagship Pixel 5. So no upgrade here, but I don't necessarily think it was totally warranted simply because paired with that stock Android feel, Google's own personal touches and optimizations, and continued software support and early updates, this phone is going to feel plenty fast and capable, regardless of maybe not having the highest end specs. And it's been that way for a few release cycles now anyway. We get 6 gigs of RAM again as well, 128 gigs of storage, no SD card slot, but altogether I think this is more than enough to keep the phone feeling snappy, even with a year-plus old spec. I will say though that while you could make a bunch of different arguments about why Google kept the processor the same, whether it be a cost-saving measure to just keep the price down, convenience thing, since they probably had a bunch of these chipsets laying around, or anything else, I think it was probably just a matter of Google focusing their attention on the Pixel 6, which is right around the corner, and Google has confirmed that that phone will feature a brand new in-house Google-developed processor. I'm excited to see what's in store there, but for this phone, Google kept things simple. You get what we know was good last year once again. It works, and in this particular case, I think I'm okay with that. Now, one area where the Pixel 5a actually does get an upgrade is with the battery. This phone packs a fairly large 4680 milliamp battery inside. It's the biggest battery a Pixel phone has ever had, and with this, I think you'll find even better battery life than the already stellar battery life previous Pixel phones have had, at least in my own experience. I'm excited to put this phone to the test to see just how long it'll last, but I could see it being a really stellar all-day phone and then some, even under some heavier usage. Paired with the 18-watt fast charger, and I think you'll be spending quite a bit less time on the charger overall, especially compared to the smaller battery on the Pixel 4a 5G last year. This is one aspect that is definitely a welcome improvement to say the least. Finally, let's talk cameras. Now, I think it should come as no surprise that Google has once again just brought over the same hardware setup that we've been offered for a couple of years now. The 12.2 megapixel f1.7 aperture main lens is paired with their 16 megapixel ultra wide, but this time we do get at least a slightly wider field of view. The selfie camera also remains the same. It's the 8 megapixel shooter once again, but collectively, hardware specs aside, this is again one of the best camera setups on any phone. Capability-wise, the full suite of shooting modes and features is all here. 4K 60 frames per second video, pixel shift, auto HDR, enhanced video stabilization options with a few different things to choose from, night sight of course, which Google does so well, and all that stuff is great on its own, but when you start taking pictures, like always, you're just gonna immediately recognize those best-in-class shots. Google hasn't changed their camera setup simply because I don't really think they need to. Pixel phones still take some of the best shots, and and this phone is no exception. It's probably the best picture taker you can get now for under $500, and the results speak for themselves. Now, I'm absolutely going to do more camera tests and side-by-side comparisons, but once again, if pictures are your thing, the Pixel will likely be the #1 choice for offering highly detailed, phenomenal looking shots in every condition. And it's once again probably the biggest overall value element to this phone. All in all, the Pixel 5a 5G is just a continuation of stellar value paired with the bits and pieces Google does best. Good hardware, a fantastic camera, a fan favorite software experience. It isn't a huge upgrade over last year's 4a 5G, but that's okay because there wasn't a whole lot with that phone that needed to be changed. A bigger battery this time around is great. Slightly bigger screen too is kind of nice. Water resistance is definitely good. And the price is once again, I think, the main factor in considering this phone at all. $449 makes it an incredible value. And I'm glad Google decided to bring this A series phone back for 2021. So there you go. Those are my initial thoughts, at least, on this new Pixel 5a 5G. What do you guys think? Is this phone in the running as a top tier 2021 device? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, of course. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.